Welcome back to another episode of the Higher Love with Megan podcast, talking all things holistic health and mind, body, soul, healing and expansion with me, your host, Megan Cooper. Thank you to all of you who have so far shared your thoughts and vibes from the previous episodes. I love hearing from you, so do keep your comments coming. And if this is the first time that you're tuning in with me, then do go back and listen to the previous episodes. This episode is recorded with Bex Milford of Cosmic Cures. Bex is an astrologer, cosmic coach, crystal healer, and founder of the Moon Child Sorority, her astro-guide subscription community of lunar lovers using cosmic energies to navigate each month and to expand and evolve. As we transition into the new year, I thought that this would be the perfect time to record an episode about astrology. 2022 has a beautiful ring to it, and let's face it, after the last 2 years, I think that we need all the help that we can get. Anything that the sky or the cosmos has to offer, count me in. Whether you are a newbie to astrology, just dipping your toes in, or a seasoned astro veteran, you'll receive all that you need to know about how to capitalise on the celestial magic available to us each month for 2022 and beyond. In this episode, Bex and I explore astrology as a tool for self-discovery, self-exploration and self-realisation. An opportunity to explore different parts of ourselves each day, week and month. When we work with the wisdom of the skies, we too get to explore ourselves as multi-faceted beings, to own and explore our darkness and our light, our shadows and our shine, and learn the cosmic dance of letting go and inviting in, burning and manifesting, death and rebirth. May this understanding of astrology be a gateway to getting to know yourself on an even deeper level in 2022. And Bex is the perfect guide. Bex has contributed to The Express, The Metro, Glamour and Bustle, and has held live events at Latitude, Lost Village and Soul Circus. She holds regular virtual moon ceremonies, which after this glorious episode, I will definitely be getting my bottom to each fortnight as part of my monthly ritual. The essence of Bex's work is to help you align and shine with your own potential by harnessing the planets, stars, and lunar flow to tap into your highest vibrations, taking you on a star-studded journey from passenger to driving force. Thank you so much for being here and welcome to Bex.
Hi, lovely to speak to you all.
All right, my love, I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you, especially as we enter into a fresh new year. I thought this would be such a powerful time to be having this conversation about astrology and how to be kind of mapping out our next steps and get a deeper understanding of what's coming up. So I just thought that I would start this off by a super easy astrology 101 of what actually is astrology, because I think that people often have images of kind of like Mystic Meg with her crystal ball. And how does astrology actually work? So if you can just give a general introduction on astrology, that would be great.
Okay, just potted history of, the last thousands of years. That's fine. Will do. Do you know what? That's really funny that you say that about people having this misconception about it, and this idea of a crystal ball, because actually there is quite a lot of science and mathematics behind astrology. It is a pseudoscience, but it's a lot more logical and there's a lot more kind of structure behind it than people would assume. So when I am talking to people about their star sign, which is your sun sign, also rising sign, moon sign, all of this is just the beginning, then they kind of, their eyes start to open a little bit and they're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize it was this in depth, because what I'm doing is I'm looking at where the planets and where the sun and the moon are at this moment in time. And I'm comparing them when I look at your birth chart, which is a snapshot of the sky, the moment that you were born. We call it your cosmic blueprint, let's say. And I'm looking at where the planets are now in relation to where the planets were when you were born. And that's going to naturally create aspects. And an aspect is just the way that a planet relates to one another in an angle term. So again, it's maths. So when, for example, the sun in the sky right now is 90 degrees away from where the sun was when you were born, we call that a square. And this is going to cause tensions and it's going to cause struggles. So you start to begin to see how there are, a myriad of planets in our solar system and in your birth chart. And so there are so many different ways they can all interconnect with each other. So this idea that it's just your star sign and that someone looks into a crystal ball and says, oh, this is coming up for you. Actually, what we're doing is we're looking at the sun in the sky. We're looking at the sun where it was when you were born. We're looking at how it's interacting with all the other planets. We're taking mathematical like equations in a sense, because we're seeing the angle and the degrees apart they are from one another. And from that, we're building a picture of you. So suddenly it's a lot more in depth, and it becomes very, very specific and very, very exciting. I mean, this is deep astrology. When we're just looking at the lighter side of astrology, or the astrology that you would know, say, through horoscopes, what you should do when you're looking at a horoscope is actually read your rising sign. So what your rising sign is it's where the sun was in the eastern horizon the moment you took your first breath. And that means that we start to understand the areas of your life affected by astrology. So we know where the sun is going to be moving through in your life. And it just makes it a bit more easy for you to connect with the kind of the different energies that an astrologer is talking about.
Wow. So fascinating. Honestly, when I had my first birth chart reading, I was amazed. I went in with kind of no expectations of what it was going to be like. It was literally like somebody just read the entire rule book of my life to me, and like all of my kind of past history, all of my present, everything that I was moving into. It was so spot on. I couldn't get over it. So yeah, I would encourage anyone to be dipping their toe into this stuff. So how did you get into astrology? Is it something that's always been in your field, or when did you discover it? How did you get into it?
So I've been really, really lucky in my life in that I had a very spiritual upbringing. My dad, who I call Owly, who's featured on some of my sessions or like my workshops and crystals and things, he is a yogi. He teaches meditation. He's a Reiki healer. He's been doing all of this for like over 50 years. And he really he was integral in my upbringing. I remember like going into his study and there were just crystals everywhere, and this is when I was like tiny, and he would be doing yoga and I'd be like climbing all over him, little climbing frame, doing downward dog, things like that. And we used to go to Glastonbury, the Village, or rather the festival, when I was like 9 and 10, and I'd get to like choose a crystal. And so I was really immersed in this world from really, really young age, and adored it, obviously. And I just remember picking up books on astrology when I was younger and flipping through them, and with all these like beautiful, amazing illustrations. And it was just really, really captured my imagination and fascinated me. And I got my first pack of tarot cards when I was 12 years old. I remember taking them into school, getting them confiscated, but like the understanding wasn't there. But I've always been interested in more esoteric subjects and this whole idea of holistic wellness as well. And so it was just like very natural for me to always be open-minded towards it. In my 20s, I fell out of it slightly. I went to university. I was focused on having a good time, being with my friends. And then later in my 20s, I picked it up again. I think someone was speaking about the moon and the lunar cycles, and I was like, yeah, I really like resonate with this. Started reading up about it, looking up about it, and I was like, I can use this to understand so much more about myself. This is such a great tool for self-development, self-learning. And so I picked up again. I'd share it with my friends every now and then. I'd like dip my toe into reading their birth charts. We'd sort of like celebrate a full moon or a new moon, on occasion. And then it was only really when lockdown started I thought, I'm going to turn this into something where I can create a platform to share what I know with others, and it's going to be a great way of me to like really throw myself back into it as well. And that's how Cosmic Cures was born, about 18 months ago, and it's just sort of skyrocketed from there. I think it was like the perfect time. People were looking into alternative therapies a lot more, as the craving to know more about astrology has really increased over the past couple of years. And also it was just, yeah, a great space to be able to connect with people. And the reception has been fabulous. I've loved it. And it's really encouraged my own learning as well, both about astrology and about myself. So it's just been really organic, and I've loved how it's come back into my life. And it's, as with everything, I mean, I believe it's come back at such a crucial time when I needed it as well. So it feels like perfect universal synchronicity.
Beautiful. You said that over the last couple of years, there's been this craving to know more about astrology. Why do you think that is? What do you think is creating this shift with people?
So astrology is essentially looking for meaning in the stars, in the sky, learning more about ourselves. And I think what lockdown did, what COVID did, it really forced us to take a look at the way that we're living our lives and the way that we are viewing our own realities as well. We're so busy all of the time. We live in a society where it is really encouraged to be go, 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 where it's encouraged to wake up at the crack of dawn and go to sleep, when you're feeling so tired that you're almost burnt out. And nowhere during that time are we really, really encouraged by this Western, society to take some time and ask ourselves, what do I need? What do I feel? Am I on the right trajectory for me? And so with COVID, when so much was stripped away of us that we relied on, like our daily routine, our habits, it created this vacuum. And that was scary for a while. And that was why a lot of people struggled naturally. We all did. But it also created a vacuum that could be filled with a real space for self-development, self-realization, self-actualization. And astrology can help with all of those things. There are a lot of naysayers out there. There are a lot of people that call BS on it. And, I meet as many people who are intrigued about it as I meet people who are like, oh, it's just, all rubbish. And to them, I'm just like, do you know what? If that's the way that you want to live your life, if you want to live in a zone and a reality where you are just led by working until you retire, until you die, then that's fine. I want to live in a reality where I can tune in my mind, tune in my body to things that are larger than myself. And this works for me. And if you ever want to come and join this party that I'm having, then I'm going to welcome you with open arms. But I'm also not going to drag you in by the collar and say, you have to listen, you have to do this, because it's choice. And that's what I love about it. And everyone that I've spoken to about it, and everyone who's been curious and I've welcomed onto the Cosmic Cures journey, has ended up saying, this has changed my life in such a positive way. And I was like, I know, I knew it would. Like, I'm so happy that you're here because I love this. It enriches my life. I want to share it with you. So I think that's one of the reasons astrology has become so much more popular in the last few years, because people are realizing fundamentally how it can help them connect with themselves.
Yeah, awesome. So what would you say astrology has facilitated for you in your life? And I know that might be, I suppose, a bit challenging because it's kind of a complete lifestyle for you. You've been involved with it since a very early age, but I'm just interested, I suppose, in the difference of how your life is with astrology in it, as opposed to if it wasn't a part of your life. What do you feel astrology brings to your life?
Oh, great question. And so many different facets as well that I could go into. On a macro scale, I would say it's just really useful knowing what energies are going to be coming up for me. So, for example, I have a lot of people, the thing that comes up a lot is that I'll say, okay, we're about to enter Capricorn season. And in astrology, a season is when the sun is in a certain zodiac sign. So we have 12 astrological seasons per year, going through each of the constellations, each of the zodiac signs. And then I have people saying, oh yeah, but I'm a Virgo. So it doesn't really matter to me, right? I'm like, no, I'm a Virgo, but Capricorn season affects all of us because we all have Capricorn in our chart somewhere. Okay, you might not have your sun in Capricorn, but you might have Mars in Capricorn. You might have Saturn in Capricorn. And that means that when the sun is moving through Capricorn, what it's doing is it's lighting up that area of your birth chart. And in doing so, it's triggering Mars, it's triggering Saturn, and this is going to have an effect on you. So I like to think about where the sun is about to be, think about the seasons. If it's going to be affecting anything in my birth chart to be aware of, is it going to be making me more motivated, what are my desires going to be doing? This is what Mars would do. You know, is it going to be making me feel a bit more insular, a bit more introverted? It's going to make me feel a bit more like I need to escape and retreat if Neptune was hanging around there. So I can kind of take that into account, and I can plan my upcoming months, my upcoming weeks using this. We can also look at the fact that each zodiac sign has high vibrations and low vibrations. And this gives us a chance to release the shadow sides and to embrace the higher vibrations each month. So each month we're brought this fresh set of energies, and that's really exciting to me. So for example, when we are in Capricorn season, which is coming up, then we're really geared more towards dedicating ourselves to our ambitions, redefining what success means to us, thinking about where we want to be in life. Then when the sun moves into Aquarius season 4 weeks later, we're thinking a bit more about our future in more of a kind of like broad perspective. We're being more innovative. We're thinking about how we can offer something to humanity a bit more. It becomes less about the I and less about the what do I want in life, as like, what can I offer others? Then when we move into Pisces season, we connect more with our spiritual self. So it's like this wonderful journey that we get to go on. And I get so excited by it because each year, astrological year starts with Aries, it's like this wheel that we get to move through, and we get to discover these different elements of ourselves. So that's on a big macro scale. On a micro scale, I found for me that I am a lot more lethargic or lower on energy just before a new moon, for example. Around a full moon, which, and we've got one coming, like at the time of this recording, we've got one coming up, but yeah, we've got like a full moon coming, and I have so much more energy, I have so much more vibrancy, I want to get loads done. But also, I've now come to learn about myself. I need to watch this on previous full moons or just before previous full moons. Say I've been working, say I've been writing, it will come to 6 p.m. and I'll think, I can do this for another 2-3 hours. I'm on a roll, and I'll work and work and work, and then I'll burn myself out because I've like, it's actually given me frantic energy. So now I know over a full moon, okay, capture this ability to be able to really go for it, but also watch your boundaries. So it's all about boundaries as well. Helps me create boundaries. And on an even smaller scale, I can check transits each day. I check my birth chart each morning. You know, you can do it through websites now, and I'll look and I'll say, okay, right, so my Mercury and my Venus are in trine with each other, which is a harmonious aspect. It means they're 120 degrees apart. So yeah, sorry, Mercury in the sky, trine my natal Venus. And that's going to be a really good day for conversing with loved ones, for creative thinking. Mercury rules our logical thinking, our cognitive processes. Venus is all about pleasure, loved ones, and creativity. So I'll be like, okay, do you know what? I'm going to do something really creative today. Even if I just carve out half an hour where I do some free writing, or I do a bit of doodling or sketching or something, I'm going to allow that energy to infiltrate my life. And then so much cool stuff comes up. It's basically like opening the door to the universe and saying, what have you got? What have you got for me? You know, it's like a calendar, an advent calendar each day of like universal gifts, and saying, I'm going to give you the chance to offer me something. I'm not going to try and have so much control. I'm going to go with the flow of life a little bit, and I'm going to just see what comes up. I'm going to roll the dice. And I love that. And it just makes life so much more fun, so much more interesting, and so much comes up because of it.
There is a couple of things I heard you say in there, like not exactly your words, but the things that were coming through was that firstly, astrology is like a kind of self-help, self-empowerment tool, because it's giving you all of these different invitations, let's say, for you to look at, you know, to look at what's coming up for you, and what you're saying in terms of like creating boundaries and stuff. It's using all of this as a blueprint to give ourselves power and sovereignty, essentially, and see ourselves as unique beings, slightly different from everybody else, with a slightly different rule book, slightly different guidelines. So I loved that you were saying about this, about it being this tool for self-exploration and self-empowerment. And also what you were saying in terms of it being like an invitation to see ourselves as like multifaceted beings, like working with these different cycles, essentially, like with the moon cycle, with the zodiac, and seeing ourselves as, you know, what, not one dimensional, doing the same thing every single day, day in, day out, but actually exploring these different parts of ourselves, which I suppose for me, that's something that I'm really attracted to, because coming from a hormones background with my health coaching, I'm always encouraging women to work with their cycles, as in their menstrual cycle. And it sounds from what you're saying, it's like this is also another way of us to explore different sides of ourselves, different energies, which potentially in our society as we are now, it's kind of it's a one size fits all, this is your energy day in, day out, etc. Whereas astrology is an invitation for you to explore different parts of yourself, right?
Exactly that. And you took the words right out of my mouth when you said this one size fits all, and how it just doesn't allow us to function in the beautiful, unique way that we all are like divinely allowed to, or that we have this invitation towards to do. So the way that I also look at astrology is I truly, truly believe that, where attention goes, energy flows, and that we create our own realities. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to go through hard times. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to suffer grief and not going to suffer pain. But also what grief and pain are is they're incredible learning opportunities about ourselves. And so with the help of astrology, with the help of these tools, with the help of crystal healing, with the help of meditation, with yoga even, these are all ways that we are helping to align ourselves, and we're helping to find our place in this fragile world. And I just think it's really, really important for our mindset as well. What we need to remember is that we're living our life by a series of stories that we are telling ourselves. We live by the stories in our mind that we have picked up, that we have accumulated. And often these stories aren't serving us. Maybe they served someone else, or maybe they were told to us by someone that wasn't trying to support us. So we need to really, really think about the narrative that we're creating on a daily basis. And is it helping me be the version of myself that I want to be? And again, this is what holistic therapies often do. They help us shift up this narrative. So anything that can do that, I'm wholly, wholly encouraging of.
And yeah, what you're saying there in terms of it being like kind of a process of drawing things in and letting things go. That is such an important thing within our lives, isn't it? Of like really honoring letting go of things, and this seeing cycles as sacred, whether it is the end of a relationship or letting go of a job, or, even just women having menstrual cycles. Like we're constantly in this cycle of inviting in fresh energy and letting things go. And that's what you're saying there, of really honoring the letting go phase as well, and allowing ourselves to evolve continuously. And I loved as well what you were saying about essentially about kind of like creating ritual and devotion, because I certainly really, really miss when I've had ritual and devotion in my life. And I've listened to various podcasts and books and things about how this is really something that's been kind of stamped out of society, right? You look at a lot of other different cultures, whether it's more ancient cultures, whether it's or foreign cultures, and they have so much ritual and devotion, and therefore kind of this depth and this nourishment and this sense of connection within their society. And what astrology seems to be an invitation to is really creating ritual and creating devotion, right?
Definitely, definitely. It's ritual, devotion, and it's also community. You've got to remember that it's people coming together. I do a lot of like moon circles, a lot of ceremonies, and it's people coming together and sharing their energy. And that's hugely, hugely powerful too. And we like to think whichever stage that we're at in life, in history, we like to think that we're the pinnacle of awareness, right? So right now, where we are in history, we look back and we think, okay, but we've improved upon what the past has done. But actually, I think that's quite a small-minded way of looking at things. Sure, something, we have better technology, but are we better in ourselves? Do we feel more fulfilled? Do we feel more content as individuals? We really need to ask ourselves these questions. When you look back at all ancient civilizations, there was an element of ritual and an element of devotion. And I think it's such a shame that we have lost that. And what I think is really curious is that we still try to create this. If you think about when you go to do your, morning habits, and you would go to the same coffee shop each time, and you may sit at the same desk or the same seat in the cafeteria if at work. If you then can't do that for any kind of reason, you get a bit rocked. Like, you feel like your whole energy is off balance, and you don't really know why. And it's because you've created your own habit, your own ritual, without even realizing it. So there's still this huge craving for ritual, but we've just had to find it in really kind of like either mundane ways or ways that get swept up in like corporate living. So to return to something more natural, to return to something more holistic, especially if it encourages you to connect with the moon, connect with your own cycles, connect with your own emotions, your own feelings. It's hugely, hugely powerful. And it also allows a sense of peace and a sense of control, but inner control, rather than having to control what's going on outside of you and thus becoming anxious, because there's absolutely no point trying to control the world, because it's not going to happen. If you can learn to start controlling your reactions to those things, then you find this huge sense of empowerment, and you can go out into the world and things are going to phase you less. So this is another way that ritual routine really helps.
Wow, that's so interesting, because I was just thinking when you were talking about creating ritual in ways that we kind of unconsciously, in my early 20s, when I would say I didn't really, ritual was not part of my life, let's say, but I would find myself every single yoga class wanting to go to the same yoga mat. And I just thought it was me just being a bit kind of like, bit OCD, but actually it really resonates, you saying that, of trying to create some kind of ritual when actually I didn't have a morning ritual. So yeah, that's super interesting. Love that. Yeah. So maybe we are all craving ritual in some kind of way, and this is just an invitation for us to bring that back into our lives on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
I definitely think so. Yeah. And when you can then start incorporating things like daily gratitude lists, even if it's just, writing 3 things in the morning that you're grateful for, or if that sounds like too much of a struggle, then on your commute, getting out the notes section on your phone and just writing I'm grateful for, and then writing 1 thing a day. This is a really wonderful way of raising your vibration, right? Our thoughts create our emotions, which create our actions. So we need to be having these positive thoughts, or positive is a word that's now being swept up with, as in, I wouldn't say there's like positive, negative, because everything is so, there's like shadows and nuances to everything. Yeah. If we have a thought, and let's call it a positive thought, that is going to lift us, that's going to raise our vibration, that's going to expand us, that's going to make us feel more content, more excited, more enthusiastic, then our emotions are going to follow suit, and we're going to then go about our day with actions to match, where we put ourselves out there, where we communicate in a more relatable way, all of these different things. When we're having thoughts that diminish our sense of self-esteem, that make us retreat and retract, then our emotions are going to follow, and then our actions are going to do the same, and we're going to naturally find ourselves closing ourselves off to opportunities and to people. So it's all about changing that thought pattern for ways that support us.
Awesome. So just a question now, with all these things, yoga, meditation, a lot of these different kind of spiritual practices, a lot of people view them as new age type thing, when actually, with Chinese medicine, they date back centuries, millennia, tens of thousands of years. And I know that astrology is one of those things as well. It's not a new age science. It's something that dates back millennia. How far back are you aware that astrology goes back? What's the lineage or history, I guess, of astrology?
So there's astrology, which is looking up into the sky, looking at the planets, seeing how they relate to one another, searching for meaning in the sky. And then there's also, I guess you could say, like moonology, or for like tracking the lunar flow. And they're slightly different. There's been evidence of people tracking lunar cycles from as far back as like 25,000 years ago, from like cave paintings, markings on caves, markings on bones, of people tracking the lunar cycle in order, because it's a way of like getting to grips with the seasons back then. And it was kind of like a calendar. It was very early calendar system. And if you think about the fact that the moon controls, so much of, even in farming, the Farmer's Almanac used to give, or still does, give each of the moons, because it's really integral. Obviously now technology has taken that place, but the moon, we're so connected to the moon, and the fact that it controls the tides, and we have so much water in us. And so in that case, like with the moon, then 25,000 years back, when we look at actual astrology, there's evidence up to like, the third millennium BC. And this was when astrology was actually treated like it was academic. Like, so you would be a scholar if you studied astrology. And right up into the 17th century, it was treated in the same class as, say, like politics, medicine. And that's because like now we put our date, place, time of birth, whatever, into a search engine on the internet, and it comes up with the sky for us. Back then, they were like they were looking up into the sky, they were having to relay what was there onto charts, and they were using all these like mechanical tools to work out the angles and the orbs. And it is just so fascinating how right they got it. You actually look at the distances that they managed to ascertain that the planets were from one another, or the way that the Earth moved around the sun. The fact that they did this all without telescopes, they did it all without satellites. It's amazing. So yeah, it's far like third millennium BC right through to the 17th century. Then we're looking at people in ancient Babylonia, like in Mesopotamia, in ancient Iraq, in Egypt, all of these places, studying astrology and being enthused by it, being excited by it, and teaching it as if it was a science. And it just goes back to the whole thing of like, because we believe now that we are the pinnacle of awareness, then we're like, yeah, but that was all just like their rubbish from their side of things. But I think it's a real shame that we've lost a connection with something that can provide so useful to us. And I also, we've been talking about it very much in a way to utilize as a tool for self-development, and that's how I approach it. I am that kind of astrologer. Do I think that the way that the planets move in the sky has a direct effect on us? Yes, I do. But I can't tell you how, but I do believe like as above, so below. And there are some things that we just don't understand enough about, and I'm okay not understanding enough about it. Do you know what, Megan? I don't even really know how gravity works. Like I don't understand like the science of it. I'm just like, okay, I know that if I drop an apple, it's going to fall to the floor. I can't remember my physics class where it tells you how to do it, but I trust it, and so it's the same with astrology. I believe in something more, and it's expanded my life. It's helped me help others, and so I'm happy with just having a bit of faith.
Completely. And I think that that's what's allowed me to have such an open mind about so many different things, because I acknowledge that like I'm a very small person in a very big planet, in a very big universe. And there's so much that we don't know, and what you're talking about in terms of people doing astrology back in ancient Babylonia, etc. It's like, as humans, we're just trying to make sense of the world, just trying to make sense of our place in it all of the time. And humans have been doing that for millennia, just trying to understand why the fuck we're here.
Exactly. And we'll be doing that until, the end of time. And in 500 years, 1,000 years, whatever kind of civilization is still living on this planet, if we haven't destroyed it by then they're going to look back at the way that we live our lives and be like, are you serious? They used to think that, or they used to live their lives in that way. So I think it's very small-minded to think that we have all of the answers right now at this point in time. So, I do disregard that way of thinking.
Totally. Yeah, 100%. So what are the different ways that we can use astrology? I know that we've touched on various different things, but just talking about different ways that you work with it, because obviously you do a few different things, which is, private readings, and then we can also look at collective shifts. There's also moon tracking. So can you just give an overview of different ways in which you work with it?
Sure, sure. So when it comes to private readings, there are really two kinds of private readings that you can have. There is either the natal chart reading, the birth chart reading, which is where an astrologer will look at your blueprint. It sounds very much like what you had. Look at your cosmic blueprint, look at where everything was, all the planets were, in what zodiac signs when you were born. And they'll tell you about yourself, and it gives a real insight into why you might feel certain things, why you might do certain things, why you might have certain reactions. And this is just, again, this great toolbox for learning more about yourself. So you know, if you are more prone to being sensitive, if someone speaks to you in a certain way, then you can start to work on that element of yourself. And it helps us with boundaries, it helps us with self-acceptance, all of these different things. So that's a natal chart reading. You can also work with predictive astrology, which is where we look at a transit chart, which is what I was mentioning before, which is where we look at where the planets are in the sky right now. And we almost like kind of take imagine like a piece of tracing paper with all the planets on it, and then we lay it over the top of your birth chart, and then we look to see how the planets might be reacting with the planets when you were born. And this is known as transit chart reading, because we can use this in predictive astrology to say, right, the sun is about to enter Capricorn, and for you, Capricorn is in your 4th house. And we haven't got into houses yet. That's a whole different level. But houses in your chart basically show the areas of your life that are affected. If we look at the fact that the planets are like the characters in this huge play of your life, and they all bring in different roles. So we have Mercury, the messenger. We have Mars, the warrior. Venus, the lover. Jupiter, the great teacher. When we look and we see what zodiac sign they fall into, the zodiac signs are kind of like the costumes that they're wearing. So if you have your Venus in Scorpio, sassy Scorpio, and I have my Venus in Mars, for example, like dynamic go-getting Mars, we're going to have very different attitudes towards love, relationship, pleasure. So we look at our planets, we look at our characters, we look to see what costumes they're wearing. And then the houses show the stages, the areas in our life so that are most affected by this. So the 2nd house, for example, is all about material wealth and also value, how we deem ourselves valuable, you know, our self-worth. We look over to the 6th house to look at jobs, routine, health, wellness. We head on up to the 10th house to look at our career and our aspirations. Over next door at the 11th house is all about our social circle, all about how we view the future. So it all becomes like really, really integrated when we look at all these things, 3 things together. So this is how we use predictive astrology, and we look to see what planet's going to be entering what houses for you. For example, if you have the sun about to enter your 6th house, then this is a time where your health should really be a focus and a priority, and where you might see shifts in your job, for example. You might see shifts in your routine. So this is how we use predictive astrology. So those are kind of like the 2 ways that I use birth chart readings, and that's more of a one-to-one thing. When I hold my moon ceremonies, and when I encourage people to work with the moon on a kind of a cyclical basis, and we're looking at the phases, this is a kind of different ball game. This is for anyone to plug into. You don't need to have a one-to-one with an astrologer for this. You don't even need to spend any money if you want to do this. You're just noticing the phases of the moon, and you're aligning yourself with them in order to think about how you want to manifest things into your life, how you want to attract things into your life. And with that, what we do is we start with the new moon. We have one new moon. Generally, we have one new moon a month. And the new moon is when we look up into the sky and it's completely dark. We can't see the moon anywhere. And very naturally, a lot of people think, oh, we just can't see the moon. You know, the Earth's moved to a stage, or, you know, on her orbit, then she's moved to a stage where we can't see her in the night sky. That's not true. The moon is always in the sky. Just during a new moon, because of the way that the sun is positioned and no light is shining onto the moon, because that's in the same constellation, it means that she's disappeared from view. So retreated. And this is really an invitation for us to retreat as well, to take some time, either in ritual, in ceremony. I always hold my ceremonies over a new moon, to share with others, but also to really listen to our intuition. If we think about back, 25,000 years ago, or whatever, when the moon disappeared from the sky, we'd be plunged into blackness. And at night, we might have been more vulnerable to predators. There would be no light pollution. So it really would have been inky dark. And so our other senses would have had to prick up, including our intuition, which is why over a new moon, we really think about spending time in meditation, listening to what we're being subconsciously pulled towards, like listening to what our soul is really craving. And we're using the energy of whatever zodiac sign the new moon is falling into in order to set intentions. Now, what intentions are is they are creating the conditions for success for us. Whereas goals are things that we can literally tick off. We might say, right, well, I want to do yoga 5 times this week. This is a goal. An intention would be, I want to start waking up with, or I intend to start waking up with enough time to really do some movement in the morning, including yoga, because I know it's going to align and balance me. So it's more of a way of creating these conditions of success in our lives that we can start structuring ourselves in a way to bring in this whole idea of like manifesting our dreams, like manifesting this life that we want to lead. So after the new moon, we then have a week where the moon appears to be growing in the night sky. And when you look up, you're going to see that beautiful sickle shape that we're also familiar with. And when the moon is growing, it just means that the orbit of the moon is taking it in a way as such that more of the sun's light is able to shine on it each night. When it's growing, we call it a waxing moon. So this is our waxing crescent phase. And as the moon's light grows each night in the sky, so our energy increases as well. So during a waxing crescent, it's the time to be putting into place these intentions, also working towards our goals, setting in motion things that are going to help us live this life that we aspire to. You know, we've set these intentions, we've really thought about ways that we want to shift things up for ourselves. So this first week is about us putting into place and being motivated to do that. A week after our new moon, we have our first quarter moon. And this is when you look up into the night sky and we've got that classic half moon shape, and it's half in darkness, half in shadow. Now, this is traditionally the time of the lunar cycle, a week later, where the first blocks, the first obstacles, the first stumbling blocks appear. And we might start to feel a little bit like demotivated, dispirited, like we want to give up. When actually what we're being asked to do here is to notice if we're being given an obstacle so that we have an opportunity to learn a lesson and to surmount that obstacle, or if actually we're being invited to think outside the box and find a different direction. Maybe we've been controlling things too much. Maybe we need to go with the flow a little bit more and open ourselves up. So our first quarter moon is a chance to really think, right, where am I finding struggle? Where am I finding obstacles? Where have I maybe kind of become a bit lax with these intentions? And how can I open myself up to the universe showing me a different direction, or teaching, you know, a lesson that's going to be valuable to me? So this is our first quarter moon. We now have another week where the moon is still getting larger in the sky. She's still waxing because the moon is still not even halfway around the orbit yet. But now it's a waxing gibbous, because when we look up, it's not that sickle shape, it's like slightly more bulbous. And this is a period of abundance, of fruitfulness, of us really feeling, right, things are getting going. I'm really motivated by this. I'm really excited by this. And I'm going to put more energy and more passion into the things that are coming up that are obviously showing themselves as being right for me. Some of your intentions won't have made it this far, but that's okay. You're kind of now choosing the ones that you really feel drawn towards, because the next stage is our full moon. Our full moon happens exactly 2 weeks after a new moon. And this is because the moon is now opposite the sun. So it's exactly opposite as opposed to next to it, where it was 2 weeks ago. And so the full light of the sun is shining onto the moon's surface, which is why it's radiant in the night sky. And just as the moon's surface is glowing, we think about things coming to the surface for us. And full moons tend to give us more energy, but they also make us more sort of like frantic. We might feel a sense of inattention. When planets or celestial bodies are in opposition, much as the sun and moon are, then there's this push-pull tension. And this is what we can feel over a full moon. So it's really important over a full moon not to disregard any emotions, any memories, any things that are coming to the surface for you, because those shadow sides of yourselves that you've been pushing down possibly for the last 2 weeks, the last 4 weeks, you know, longer, then these are coming to the surface now. A light's been shining on them, and you're being invited to take a look at them. And this is why on full moons, we work on shifting limiting beliefs and from releasing ourselves from that which no longer serves us. We can see it like this spotlight of the sun saying, okay, I know you've been pushing that limiting belief down. I know you've got that thought that is reoccurring, that is stopping you. It's just being that like block that's stopping you stepping forward on this path that you really want to tread. So let's look at that a little bit more. Where does this belief come from? Why do you still hold it? How can we shift the mindset? We're going back to the whole thing of our thoughts create our emotions, create our actions. So we're looking at our thoughts and we're saying, where does this come from for me? And so I always recommend holding a burn ritual on a full moon, which is where you do some journaling prompts. I always share journaling prompts because journaling is such an incredible tool for getting to know aspects of yourself that you hadn't even considered before. A journal prompt can be akin to having like a key that suddenly opens this treasure box of realization for yourself. So you're journaling and something might come up, you're like, wow, actually, I hold this belief about my abilities because of this that happened in my past. And so we're writing this list of limiting beliefs, and then what you can do, you can go out into the garden, you can burn it. And in burning it, this is a physical manifestation of telling the universe you're ready to let go of this, but also you're subconsciously telling yourself. And fire not only consumes but it also creates, so you're giving yourself space to then create something new. And obviously, it's not as simple as like, right, burnt my limiting belief, that one off the table, I can think about something else. This is a process that we go through, and the same limiting beliefs are going to come up again and again and again, but we just carry on working with them, right? So this is our full moon. We're working on moving past our limiting beliefs, and we're creating new positive affirmations for ourselves. Now, for the next 2 weeks, until we reach that new moon period again, the moon is going to look like it's getting smaller in the sky. It's going to be waning. And so during the waning gibbous phase, for the next week after the full moon, this is where we settle into ourselves a bit more. We look at what we've been working on. We feel gratitude for what we've created. We're kinder to ourselves. We're putting more effort into what we're trying to like manifest as well, but we're also like receiving things. And then we have our last quarter moon a week later. And this is a time of cleansing and of purification, because on our last quarter moon, we're a week away from that new moon. Remember, on our new moon, we're setting intentions, we're planting intentions. We say we don't want to just rush into this new moon and plant a bunch of new intentions. We want to make sure the soil is fertile. So on our last quarter moon, what we're doing is we are physically cleansing our space. We might want to have a declutter. You might want to clean your bedroom. You want to clean your office space. But we're also energetically cleansing ourselves. You might feel like you need to forgive someone or forgive yourself, or to allow yourself to bring your energy back to yourself, grounding, being in nature. Because then we've got this final week before the new moon, and this is our waning crescent phase. Again, we have that beautiful crescent in the sky. This time it's getting smaller, and our energy is naturally going to be lower at this point. You're not going to make as many social plans. You're going to be wanting to be a bit more introverted, but you want to be really listening to what your body needs and having a bit of self-care as well before we get to that new moon phase again. And so that is a kind of overview of how we can all use these lunar phases. But all you need to do is, get onto a website, see what the phase of the moon is, or, look at my newsletter that I send out, and then you can plug into it as well. And you might be thinking, do you know what? I feel really energetically depleted today and I don't know why. And then you might look and you might see it's the dark moon, which is right before a new moon, and that just allows you to be a bit more kind to yourself and be like, do you know what, it's completely understandable. I have less energy. I'm just gonna really give myself this time, and I'm not going to push myself. So this is how I work with it, and so I really encourage other people to work with it on a daily basis.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm like so inspired. Whilst listening to you, I was like, I just need to get myself to her ceremonies and life will be okay.
Exactly. There you go. You'll be sorted.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, what's the ideal new moon ceremony, and then what's the ideal full moon ceremony? But we should all just come along to your workshop, shouldn't we? And then that life will be easy.
Yeah, I do all the hard work for you. You get a great little workbook. But yeah, it's just a great space to share, and to, even if, you know what, you don't even need to do a ceremony or ritual. Even if you're just spending a full moon and or a new moon doing some journaling, things are going to come up for you, and it's just a great tool for self-development.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, all my love. With the rising signs in your chart, and you said that rising sign is really the thing that we should be kind of looking at the most, and that made a lot of sense to me, because so I'm a Cancer sun and a Sagittarius rising, and when I understood all the different energies, that made a bit more sense, because I've always regarded myself as like, oh well, I'm not a typical Cancerian. Like, yes, I'm super intuitive, super emotional, but there are also parts of me that's like, I'm not really like a homemaker. Cancerians had traditionally like love cooking and love hosting, and I'm like, that's not really me. But when I understood Sagittarius rising. I was like, interesting. So can you just summarize the differences? And I know that we've touched on this before, but just for extra clarity, for somebody to understand the difference between their sun sign, their moon sign, and their rising sign.
Sure. So sun sign, also known as star sign, if you think the sun is the biggest star in our solar system, then your sun/star sign is where you have the potential to shine in this life, where you have the potential to glow, where you find your purpose in life. So a lot of people, when they don't resonate with their star sign, it's because that's not naturally something that's going to come to you. This isn't what you are naturally drawn towards. But when you understand your star sign and the potential that that has, this is where you can really, really connect with a sense of fulfillment. And for you, for example, Cancer, yes, very intuitive, very emotionally intelligent, very nurturing. And you've made a career out of these things. So you've plugged into those high vibrations and you're like, okay, I'm finding my purpose through this. But do you innately feel like a homebody? No, of course you don't. Well, because your Sagittarius rising is your motivation in life. So our rising sign is our motivation, what gets us up in the morning when we're feeling like a sense of lethargy, or feeling like we just don't really know what our reason for going out and doing things are. We can look to our rising sign and saying, what does my rising mean and need? And for you, rising Sagittarius, it's going to crave a bit of pushing boundaries, a bit of adventure, studying something new, sharing something new, traveling. So we can look at our rising sign to see how it is we want to step out onto the stage of life, how we find our motivation for being. Then we look at our sun sign for this purpose and where we can shine. And then our moon sign is all about our emotional needs and our emotional, where we seek nurture emotionally. So our moon sign is actually a far more personal thing. And it's what we might only show to those we're very close to. And it's the way that we seek and crave to feel stability in our lives as well. So it's really useful to know all three of them, because they all at some stage in our lives are going to that all come together to create something very, very unique and personal to ourselves that covers all the different aspects, like how we seek fulfillment and how we are looking to have purpose in life, how we are motivated to do that, but then also emotionally how we return to ourselves at the end of all of it. So we, understanding all of them is really, really crucial.
Wow. Yeah, because my moon's in Leo, and I was like, oh, interesting. I have this it's very interesting, different energy, I suppose, to bring in.
Massively so. So moon in Leo and then sun in Cancer is so different than if you had, for example, your moon in Cancer and your sun in Leo. It's actually quite interesting because Leo is naturally ruled by the sun and Cancer is ruled by the moon. So the fact that you've got the flip and the polarity of both of them is really, really interesting, which is why sometimes you might feel like you are very gregarious, very just want to go out there and just shine and speak to everyone and be sort of very warm and open-hearted, but then also definitely need times where you're like, I need to be alone, I need to recharge, no one can speak to me. This is absolutely integral for my sense of well-being. It's because you have that polarity with them.
Totally. It's you just described my life. Amazing, my love. Oh my goodness, there's so much stuff here that I want to keep talking to you about, but I will just ask you finally, what is coming up for us in January or the beginning of 2022 in terms of placements, in terms of the energies and how we can navigate this? Obviously, we're speaking collectively right now because, you don't have anyone's particular chart in front of you, but just what's coming up for us energetically in January in terms of seasons, energetics, etc.
So we'll be moving into Capricorn season, and which is actually at the end of December, around sort of the 21st, 22nd of December. And we have a lot of Capricorn earth energy and Aquarius air energy happening in January. And this is because we have the sun in Capricorn for the majority of January, and then the sun will move into Aquarius. But we also have Mercury entering Aquarius right at the beginning of January on the 2nd, and Mars entering Capricorn on the 24th. So we have the sun, which gives us all this. We all plug into the high and low vibrations of where the sun is, because the sun is so influential in astrology. So with Capricorn energy, we're all going to be geared towards where do I want to make big shifts in my life? Where do I want to be a success? Capricorn is all about finding that dedication, that determination to climb the ladder of success, and also find our own sense of personal authority in the world. So we're going to be really, really thinking about, as a collective, right, I'm going to tune in with my ambitions again. And, it's perfect that it works out in January as well, because January is classically a time where we want to return to like, okay, I've had this fun and frivolity of, the last couple of months. Well, relatively considering what's going on in the world. But now I want to get back to brass tacks, and I want to think about, what do I want to make happen in my world? And this is a huge Capricorn energy. Aquarius energy is much more about future thinking, innovation, connecting with our inner rebel, but also thinking about how what we does affects the collective, and how we can have a more social stance, a more humanitarian stance. So for all of us, naturally our thoughts are going to be going between, right, how do I want to make a difference in the world, and how is this going to show up for me, but also how am I actually going to be able to help others? What am I adding and contributing to society? So this is going to be what we're mainly thinking about in January. And this is also very true because we have Mercury, this is the planet that rules our cognitive thinking, our communication style, the way that we show up in our local community. This is going retrograde again. So we have another Mercury retrograde coming up, and it's going retrograde in Aquarius. Now, when planets go retrograde, especially Mercury retrograde, we start all panicking about travel and technology and communication. And yes, okay, be aware that these are all likely to have, more likely to be disturbed. So be extra careful when you're booking things, be extra careful backing up files, all of the classic things. But actually, with retrogrades, what we really encourage in astrology is to remember that this is a time to have a bit of introverted thinking. When planets go retrograde, they're not actually going backwards, they just appear to be, because the Earth's orbit's overtaking them. So we can think of it when you have like two trains and one overtakes the other, you look backwards, it appears the other one is going backwards. It's not, but it looks like it is. And so as this planet's energy swivels inward, so we want to think about the themes that they rule and how we relate to them in a more introspective sense. And because Mercury is all about communication and all about the way that we apply ourselves to logical thinking, also travel, these kind of things, and Aquarius is all about this idea of connecting with the rebel within us. Like Aquarius is very freedom loving. So we want to be thinking about, how do we allow ourselves to be that rebel that we want to be? How do we allow rebellious thoughts and innovative thinking to help structure our lives? It's a really, really good time to be thinking about your ambitions, thinking about what you want to achieve in life, but also employing out of the box thinking, not restricting yourself, being like, if I could have anything in the world, and if I was really going to show up as like my unique self, what would I go for? So these are like perfect energies that we can tap into in January specifically. And then Mars moves into Capricorn on the 24th, so right at the end of January. And then Mars brings motivation, it brings dedication to whatever sign it's sitting in. Again, Capricorn, all about like really, really wanting to succeed. And so we're suddenly going to be fired up to all of those thoughts that we've been having at the beginning of January, all of that inner processing about, where do I want to be a rebel in my own life? Where do I want to push boundaries? When Mars moves into Capricorn on the 24th, it's like, right, action stations. Let's actually make this happen. Let's be a pioneer in our own lives, and let's set things into place to really, really go for it. So first half of January, thinking, processing, right towards the end of January, right, let's make some things happen.
It's made me very excited for January, that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody is new to astrology and wants to dip their toe in for 2022, what would you say is the best way to go about it? You've mentioned journaling, and then obviously using especially the new moon, the full moon, as an opportunity to do a bit more journaling, or maybe creating some kind of ritual or self-reflection. Is there anything else that you would recommend? I mean, it sounds like actually just receiving your newsletters and attending the events is probably the easiest way to go about it.
Yeah, join me on Cosmic Cures, cosmic_cures, and have a little look through the page. I'm always posting stuff. I'm always giving you updates about what's going on with the planets and the solar system at the moment. I've got a newsletter that you can receive. I've also got a subscription that you can join, and I know you've had a little look through it, and this gives you a daily breakdown of what's happening, gives you journal prompts for every single day. So this is a way of aligning yourself on a daily basis as well. But I would definitely say, go on, find find out your date, your date of birth, hopefully, but find out your place and your time of birth, find out what your sun, moon and rising are, and just start having a little explore. Start, buy yourself a book, or just, you don't even need to buy anything. Like, just go online, have a little tinker around and read up on it, and start to get excited, because things are going to start resonating with you, and be like, oh wow, okay, yeah, I see. And then that's on a personal level. And then start noticing what phase the moon is in. Buy yourself a new diary, draw at the top of whatever page it is, like what sign the moon is in and what phase it's at. Write down how you're feeling, and start to notice if during the month you are reacting in a certain way to certain moon phases, to certain constellations, and just make a bit of an adventure out of it. Like, use it as this amazing start of a journey, and just, have a little fun with it. And I don't doubt that once you've accumulated more information, you're going to then want to dig your toes, or dive in even deeper, let's say. I have new moon ceremonies each month, depending on which night the new moon is, but sometimes there can be a bit of a crossover, because the new moon can exactly occur at a different time depending on or different date depending on what time zone you're in. So I don't have any set dates yet. I tend to also put polls up on my stories to see what dates people can do the most. So definitely join me on that. I'm also going to be doing some exciting workshops in 2022 all about how to read your own birth chart, so you'll be able to get involved with those too. But just join on Cosmic Cures and start receiving the newsletter and start receiving all your information through that, and it's a great way of beginning your journey.
Amazing. Thank you, my love. This has been so inspiring and so insightful. I feel like I've gained so much clarity myself through spending this hour with you. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Megs. I've really enjoyed it.
I hope that you all enjoyed that fabulous episode with Bex. Joining her subscription group is one of my 2022 gifts to myself, so that I can keep up to date with all of her moon wisdom and really capitalise on all the cosmic goodness available to us in all of the months to come. If you haven't already, click follow to stay up to date with episodes as I release them. Follow me on Instagram at higherlove_with_Megan, and look out for what I'm cooking up for you all in the new year. In the meantime, a very happy new year to you all. And here's to an epic and magical 2022. Big love.